When an Italian tourist ran up to an officer in New York City, he told him an absolutely crazy tale. He claimed that he had been held captive in a nearby brownstone for weeks and tortured for his crypto password. What police uncovered sounds like it's straight out of a horror movie, and now we're digging into what we know so far about this alleged extortion plot that played out in a Soho townhouse and why police officers are now under investigation too for their apparent connections to the crypto bros. Welcome to Sidebar, presented by Law&Crime. I'm Jesse Weber. Hey everybody, this is another Law&Crime legal alert. Did you know that children are being diagnosed with serious conditions like type 2 diabetes and non-alcoholic fatty liver disease, and the research is potentially linking ultra-processed foods to all this? Yeah, well, Morgan & Morgan, they're stepping in to fight to hold these food companies accountable. With decades of experience fighting large corporations, they are ready to stand up for the families who deserve justice. So if your child under 21 has been diagnosed with type 2 diabetes or fatty liver disease, then visit www.forthepeople.com/food or scan the QR code on screen to learn more. All right, you got to get this. You have two cryptocurrency entrepreneurs, one from Kentucky, the other one lives in Florida. They have been charged in New York with kidnapping and unlawful imprisonment. This is not a headline that you see often. And they, along with a woman, they were arrested after a man ran up to a police officer on the street and told him he just escaped from a luxury townhouse on Prince Street and needed help. Yeah. Surveillance video obtained by NBC4 in New York shows this barefoot man approaching the traffic cop to let him know that he had been the victim of absolutely unbelievable crimes, or alleged crimes, I should say. So let's talk about this. Talk about what the NYPD says happened and what could be next in this legal saga. I want to bring in Dave Sarni, an adjunct professor of criminal justice who also happens to be a retired NYPD detective. Dave, thanks so much for jumping on here. Obviously a lot to get into, but I got to tell you, and we'll talk about this. Imagine being that officer and this gentleman comes up to tell you what's going on. Can you even imagine that? Yeah,
this traffic agent is kind of like probably shocked as anything you do, and then they just take him back to the precinct, makes the call, they get him back to the precinct, they debrief him, find out what's going on, go back to the residence, secure the location, get in the door, apprehend the person doing it, get the search warrant. There's a lot of there's a lot of work involved in this, but to sometimes have somebody come up to you and give you this fantastic story, the average citizen wouldn't believe it, but it's beneficial and it's smart that the cop actually looked and said, this is too crazy. Let me get some help on this.
Okay, before we move into the actual specifics of the story, for anybody who's watching this and trying to understand a little bit about New York geography, generally speaking, there's crime in New York, obviously, but something like this, it's a metropolitan city. You don't necessarily see people committing these kinds of crimes in these kinds of environments, in these kinds of buildings, right?
No, you don't have something like this. And that's the one thing. You do have street crime. I mean, Soho is a high-end retail location, also a high-end residential location. You do see crime there, but to this type of crime, it's rare that you get this. I mean, I know that Major Case got involved in this, the NYPD. So it's something that we don't see often. Usually we deal with street crime, street robberies, street assaults, things like that. But
people selling fake Louis Vuitton bags on the street, things like that.
Oh, absolutely. The fake things out there, scams, ticket scams, things like that. But this type of thing, it's beyond that we'd expect. And
yeah,
this plan they had was, as it unraveled, you're shocked.
So let's talk about it. So we go to Friday, May 23rd, around 9:30 in the morning. A 28-year-old man approached a traffic agent and said that he'd been held against his will and routinely assaulted while in captivity. That man was later identified in the media as an Italian national named Michael Valentino Tiafrastro Carturin, though police have not officially released his name. I want to be clear about that. But Michael reportedly said that he'd been held at 38 Prince Street for nearly 3 weeks, but was finally able to escape when his captors were distracted. Now, fortunately, police say he didn't have to go far before he spotted this patrolman. So Michael was reportedly covered in cuts, bruises, had ligature marks on his wrists from apparently being tied up. Michael was taken to a hospital to be checked out. The NYPD quickly jumped into action. You had officers who swarmed the 8-bedroom townhouse, which the New York Times reports rents for around $75,000 a month. Oh my gosh. Okay, so Dave, what goes into an operation like this?
Well, first, when it goes up to the squad, and some of the detectives getting this, they're going to hear about this, and then you hear this type of thing, you realize this is serious. And also you have evidence such as the injuries he's received. He's got a location where he's at. So now you're looking at this going, okay, this is big. What do? We start making notifications. We'll start getting other people involved. We'll then we'll probably have somebody from legal bureau talk to them, get this together, what we should do. And that is pretty much that takeover of the block and then that location is important because you got to seal it because it's going to be a crime scene. Once they're able to get to that location, apprehend the individual because he's been identified by the victim, he's known to the victim, which is beneficial. He's apprehended, and then you're going to conduct the search warrants and do all the work you need to do to further this investigation, to further this case of prosecution. Like I said, this is, the end result of this. You hold this person for 3 weeks. You know who he is. He knows who you are. The end game had to be that they were going to kill him eventually. That seems to be the only way because he can identify them. So I don't know why they thought this would work, but this type of Bitcoin robbery, in a sense, they call them wench games, I believe. It's beyond the level of what I think they understood they were doing. I think they actually went over their heads. Both of these people allegedly went over their heads based on what they were doing. These aren't hardened criminals. These are guys who are crypto guys, and they devised a plan, and that plan probably grew legs that they couldn't control. I mean, that's really what this is. But the benefit is he's safe. The case is ongoing, and unfortunately, you're seeing this investigation go outward to other venues.
Yeah,
and dealing with security.
So first, before we get into all that, when you have a rapidly developing emergency situation like this, you talked about how authorities would need a search warrant to further look into this and you maybe obtain devices and other kinds of materials or evidence. But if they have a guy who comes out, says, I've just been held against my will for 3 weeks, can the police immediately rush in? Do they have the opportunity to do that, or do they need some sort of warrant beforehand?
Well, they're going to have to get some verification. They're going to do work up on the building, work up on the people that they know, get that all in place first. Get precinct or RMP, a marked vehicle to that location to secure it, to at least do an observation prior to them going there. Once you get all that started, you're getting the information from the victim, so that can further the case and further what you can do. Is what steps you're going to go with that. Is it going to be are we going to just boom the door, without a search warrant? Is it an exigent circumstance, an emergency? We know that the victim is with us. There's not an emergency involved. So we need to get the people involved, apprehend them, and then once we get the apprehension, go further and get the search warrants and get all the paperwork and all the documentation we need to further this case when it goes to prosecution.
So let's talk about who was arrested. So police found 37-year-old John Waltz at the property. They arrested him, and he's apparently known to some as the Crypto King of Kentucky, has a reported net worth of around $100 million. That's according to authorities. He was taken into custody while barefoot, wearing a white bathrobe. According to the NYPD, he was transported to the 5th Precinct for questioning, and he was arraigned over the weekend on 2 counts of second-degree assault, 1 count of first-degree kidnapping, unlawful imprisonment, and criminal possession of a firearm. Real quick before we move on to the other players, 5th Precinct, anything we should know there?
It's one of the oldest precincts in New York City. It's in Chinatown on Elizabeth Street. It is where the incident took place, and that's why they transported him to the 5th Precinct.
Gotcha. Okay, so then she's not the only one. Then you have a woman, a 24-year-old woman named Beatrice Falchi, who was arrested on May 23rd on suspicion of kidnapping and unlawful imprisonment. But then the Manhattan District Attorney's Office declined to prosecute further. So a reporter for the New York Post spoke with her after her release. She refused to comment, saying only that she wasn't arrested, that any updates would have to come from her lawyer. And the Daily Mail reports that Falchi was this assistant to Waltz and other so-called crypto bros that crashed at this expensive rental home, but that hasn't been 100% confirmed. Dave, is that strange to you?
Maybe not. I don't know what her relationship, how much she was involved in it, and that's why the district attorney's office declined to prosecute at this time. They still have an opportunity to, while this investigation is ongoing, if there's more information to implicate her in this, they could arrest her. So they declined at this time. So they're going to probably wait pending any further information from the detective squad.
Do you think they interviewed her? I mean, we don't know because she could have retained a lawyer immediately and decided not to speak with authorities. But do you think there's a possibility she already relayed everything she knew to authorities or relayed certain information to authorities?
Yeah, it's a possibility. A lot of times with these people, when we have subjects or suspects involved, we'll talk to them prior. But once they feel they're getting arrested, once the arrest takes place, they're going to lawyer up in a sense. And this might have been what happened here.
Okay, well, we have another person too. So we have another of these alleged crypto bros. We have 33-year-old William Duplessis, turned himself into police on May 27th, was arraigned on similar charges later that day. New York Times reports that his attorney spent days negotiating his actual surrender because Duplessis, who has family in Florida, according to prosecutors, co-founded this investment firm with his father, another relative in 2019 out in Switzerland. This is per reporting from the Times. And police believe the men, they were all connected through various businesses and various financial dealings. But Dave, real quick, when you listen to that, isn't it interesting he turned himself in?
Well, the funny thing is, he was not at the location at the time of the arrest of his partner. And apparently he was out of town in the Hamptons, from my understanding. And it's unusual that if you're involved in the kidnapping and assault of an individual, one of them leaves a location to go party and leaves the second piece or the second perpetrator only there by himself, which probably loaned to the victim to get the hell out of there, because that's the scary part. Now, at least it's a one-on-one thing. I got out, and it's beneficial to him. Negotiation, because we don't know where he is, and a lot of times it happens. What I guarantee, when the information started coming out in the media, he saw his partner getting arrested. He retained an attorney. His attorney then spoke to the police and told them, we're going to have my client come in and they'll set up a date and time in which to do that. And eventually they did.
So here's the question. What does Michael say happened to him over this 17-day period that he was held captive? Well, for that, we're now going to turn to police documentation that was reviewed by the New York Times, ABC7, and other outlets. So according to a police source for the Times, the victim, Michael, and one of the suspects, John Waltz, they had ties to this cryptocurrency hedge fund out in New York. But there was apparently some sort of falling out over money, and Michael went back to Italy. But Waltz apparently persuaded him to come back to New York, allegedly promising to give back some of Michael's crypto that had previously allegedly been extorted from him. And Assistant District Attorney Michael Mattson told ABC7 that Waltz also threatened to have Michael's family killed if he didn't return. But when Michael got to the townhouse on May 6th, he apparently told police that things quickly went sideways. His electronics, his passport, they were reportedly taken from him before he was bound by the wrists. Police say it was all part of this plot to convince him to give up his Bitcoin wallet password, which would have granted his captors access to what? Millions of dollars worth of cryptocurrency. The New York Times reports that Michael was allegedly bound with electrical cords and pistol whipped. He claims the men put his feet in water and then shocked him with a stun gun. He says they forced him to smoke crack cocaine through a pipe, urinated on him, taunted him with a chainsaw, and allegedly dangled him over the edge of a staircase in the multi-level building. By the way, Dave, going to your point, Michael reported to the officer that the day that he had escaped, that had been referred to by his captors as his death day, according to the Daily Mail. Dave, can they prove all this happened? Or do you think it's all going to go down to his testimony? I mean, what evidence do you think was collected from this scene to prove all this?
Well, they have evidence. They did find photographs. They found electrical cord. They found injuries on the victim. So there are things that, corroborate the story. This isn't a fantastic story that someone just made up. They have evidence. That's why they do a search warrant, because now you're going to go from top to bottom looking for evidence to corroborate what the victim is saying happened to him. And they have found it. They found a saw, they found drugs, they found the gun, they found the stun gun. They're finding all of these things. And they use electrical cord. They find all these items. They're going to be invoiced, vouchered for court presentation at a later date. But this corroborates and just is more evidence to the prosecution of these guys.
Yeah, I mean, there are photos. It seems that these alleged bad guys now feel compelled to document their crimes, right? Because according to the police reports seen by the New York Times, Once investigators got into the home, they found Polaroids of Michael being tortured. Investigators reportedly found several guns, ballistic helmets, body armor, night vision goggles, chicken wire, broken furniture, traces of blood. They were found in various parts of the home. This is according to CBS New York. And the outlet reports the prosecutor said during a hearing that there were T-shirts found that had a photo printed on them showing the victim with a crack pipe in his mouth. I mean, if this is all true, these are not expert criminals.
No, this was a plan. I believe what they were thinking of, this plan. They did not. I think it got escaped from. It just, in a sense, escaped from. It got away from them because they thought he would just give it up right away, and they're spending 2 or 3 weeks to do this, and they're not experts at this. They made major mistakes, but the reality is, unfortunately, the end game was going to kill him. I mean, they had to. There'd be no other way to deal with this. He could identify them, and the victim knew that, and that's why the opportunity to escape was there.
I hate to get macabre, I hate to get dark here, but again, you're in the middle of New York. How are you going to get rid of a body?
Well, we're seeing this, unfortunately, more and more. What you do is, we're seeing a lot of bodies and they're getting chopped up, and that's usually the best way in which you can remove a body. You know, as big as a person is, you could section them off and bag them up. That's how they own the house. They own that residence. So they could have done anything in there and no one would have known. And they were doing that. I mean, they threatened this guy. I mean, I don't know how they avoided any sound or any detection from this for 3 weeks. You know, this is what you could do. You can get rid of the body by chopping the body up, disposing of the pieces in different locations. We're seeing this, unfortunately, more and more when there are murders that take place. The perpetrators are now chopping the bodies up. So that probably would have happened to this guy.
Yeah, I mean, the chainsaw is pretty ominous, to say the least. So look, Michael, he reportedly told police that by Friday, 17 days after he'd initially been taken hostage, he finally told his captors that he would give them the crypto wallet password, and they just had to go get his computer so he could input it, right? Well, apparently, while they were distracted looking for that laptop, that's when Michael says he made his getaway. And as far as other potential witnesses go, CBS New York reports that sources told them 2 butlers at the home were being interviewed as well, okay? One source told Page 6 that the brownstone was a party house. Another source described it as a frat house for crypto bros that had become a crash pad. An alleged relative of Walt's told the New York Post that he was a kind, caring, loving person who had been railroaded and could be easily manipulated. And Waltz, according to CBS New York, is being held in custody, with prosecutors pointing out that he was a flight risk who had access to a private jet, a helicopter, that he was forced to surrender his passport. By the way, during his arraignment on Tuesday, Duplessis' attorney asked for the judge to release him to stay with his father in Florida. The lawyer argued that his involvement in whatever went on inside that townhouse was hotly disputed, but the judge denied the request. By the way, both men could face sentences starting at 15 years, going all the way up to life in prison if they're convicted. Dave, just listening to this, it seems to me you have both of these defendants saying, I wasn't really a part of it, right? I was railroaded. This is not true. It's not surprising considering what the allegations are.
Yeah, I mean, they're gonna say what they're gonna say because given the facts of the victim, the evidence recovered on scene, all these other items, they're going to say that they didn't know what they were doing. But the reality is, this is kind of like the gang that couldn't shoot straight. They got themselves into something that they couldn't get themselves out of. And now they're going to play this is torturing started from just the tying up and shocking him. And it was 3 weeks of this. You can't say you're not part of it if this person is held hostage for 3 weeks. And that's all going to be coming out as the investigation follows up. You know, these guys probably would not have done this by themselves, but together they plotted this, allegedly, and they got this person to come to that residence and do what they did right now. And that's what the allegations are. And we have enough to arrest. Whether or not all the evidence will have to prosecute these people and get them convicted, that'll be up to a judge and jury at that point. But looking at what we have now, it's enough.
It's a miracle he was able to escape this, taking these allegations as true.
Yeah, and that's the thing. And that's why it's so interesting that one of them, Duplessis, left. He left his partner there his running partner there so he can go party in the Hamptons for Memorial Day weekend.
Well, I do wonder if that helps him. Like, he's like, if I really was a part of this, you think I would just leave? Or no, I don't know. It's interesting.
Well, that's the issue that comes into play. It's like, but you now have the victim implicating both of them. And he also resides in that place. Where was he for those 3 weeks if he just decided to go away that time? But either they felt very comfortable it was going to happen, or the decision was made, and then this will come up probably during the hearings and eventual trial, if there will be a trial. Who was plotting, who was going to kill this guy? Because that was going to happen. The end result was he was going to have to die, because everyone knew who he was, and the victims are aware of this, and the family was out of the country. He disappears, no body, no case.
They haven't been charged with attempted murder though yet.
Not yet, because nothing is there to show that. But if this would have gone, they show the injuries. That's why the assault 2 felonies involved. But if this would have gone, and like he says, on that Friday when there was going to be that death day, that's what he felt was going to happen. That was the end result would have had to be his death. That's the reason why. Everything would implicate them just based on his testimony alone. So if you have no body and no victim, they get away with it. And the thing about crypto, it's so interesting with crypto, it's the money grows. So whatever they get out of him from the moment that they get it from him, they're going to make more money out of that. And I just don't understand the rationale behind doing this. How greedy can you possibly be in life that you decide you want to kidnap this guy and torture him for more money when you already have enough money to rent and do all this other stuff you're doing?
And get this, because the story doesn't end. So Bloomberg has reported that just yesterday, 2 members of the NYPD, including a detective assigned to Mayor Eric Adams' security detail, have been connected to Waltz and Duplessis. So unidentified sources say that 2 officers worked off duty for these men. These sources told Bloomberg that one of the officers may have been the one to transport Michael from the airport to the brownstone. So a spokesperson for Mayor Adams, Kayla Mamelek-Altis, released a statement saying, every city employee is expected to follow the law, including our officers, both on and off duty. We are disturbed by these allegations, and as soon as it came to our attention, the officers were placed on modified duty. The investigation is ongoing. What's modified duty, Dave?
Well, modified is they don't have their guns, shields. They cannot actually function as police officers. They're modified pending this investigation. Internal Affairs will be talking to them. This is a major turn in this case, given the fact that detectives are supposed to be above reproach. And if you're in the mayor's detail, you are at one of the highest levels of executive protection in New York City, particularly. And to do work off duty, you need documentation to authorize that. I don't know the location of the other detective where he works, but this is it's a sad state of affairs. If you're hired by a person, you don't vet them out. If you don't have the work authorization for this, and that's the reason why. We have to get, detectives, if they want to work off duty, have to get work authorization. If they don't, then they can't work it. So was he doing this moonlighting on the side without authorization, without permission? That puts him in an administrative position with the NYPD. The criminal position is where you really start having to look at this and like, what did you do and what did you see when you got to the location?
Do you feel like there has to be something there for that statement from the mayor's office and for them to get modified duty? Innocent till proven guilty, right? We don't know exactly what's going on with them, but at the same time, you also have to say, this seemed to be, in ways, an elaborate operation. Maybe it's not surprising they would have the aid of members of law enforcement here, but at the same time, to have that statement from the mayor's office, they seem to believe something. They might have been shown some of the evidence here against these individuals.
Well, I will say this. Anytime police are involved in an investigation like this, administratively, they'll get modified or suspended pending the investigation. And that's the par for the course. What you're going to look at now is, one, who employed them? Was this a company? Did you get employed personally by these individuals? Pay rate? What was your role? What did you do? How long did you work with them? And not only that, what did you do? What did you see the day of this happening, on the beginning of the first 3 weeks of it? And how many times you go back to that residence? All these things are going to come out and play during the investigation by the Internal Affairs Bureau in the police department. And not only that, they may hold off pending the criminal investigation for this case before they go after them administratively.
Interesting. What a case, to say the least. Dave Sarni, thank you so much for taking the time. Always appreciate it.
Thank you very much. Stay safe. Take care.
And that is all we have for you right now here on Sidebar. Everybody, thank you so much for joining us. And as always, please subscribe on YouTube, Apple Podcasts, Spotify, wherever you should get your podcasts. I'm Jesse Weber. I'll speak to you next time.